It's March 18th, Saturday, 2017, and I am JTG. And today I did my first day of teaching Saturday class for NASA as a STEM program, science, engineering, math, and technology, something like that. I think I've heard they added an A to it for art, for smart or something like that. And so it was my first day doing this, and I had a group of 17, either 17 or 18 kids, which my understanding is that's just barely enough that it will probably not get canceled. I mean, if it was like 5, they'd merge my class with somebody else, but this is pretty good. It's a 4th grade class, and I'm teaching it at Sherwood Elementary. I am not sure how many of the students are from Sherwood. Maybe they're all from Sherwood. Maybe some are from surrounding classes. Don't know. Maybe for instance, maybe I had someone from Alisal in my class and I didn't know it, because they don't have the program at Alisal Elementary. So we'd had the first the teachers meeting last Thursday, and they gave us a bunch of slideshow, a bunch of stuff, and I was listening in on it. And then we had a program where we were supposed to play the student, and our task was to build a heat shield to protect our Mars lander as it went through the Martian atmosphere. And our Mars lander was a piece of chocolate, and we were successful if we could hold the hairdryer, put it behind the heat shield we designed with the materials we were given, and if it lasted 7 minutes, we did it right. If it didn't, anyway, I'll talk more about that another time if I think about it. But we used my design, which is a combination of an aeroshell to deflect the heat, made out of a coffee cup, and a several layers thickness of cardboard alternating with paper towels or napkins. So you kind of got ways of absorbing and keeping the heat from going through. And then that was behind the aeroshell, so you deflect most of the heat with the aeroshell, and what does get through goes through several layers. We didn't succeed, but it was mostly because the vortices around the aeroshell were insufficient. The heat was deflected around to some small extent back behind the heat shield. So I think we could have fixed it. The shape of the aeroshell combined with maybe another couple layers of heat shielding material, cardboard and napkins taped together. It might have worked. Anyway, back to this morning. I'm kind of have a worn out week. I probably look pretty tired. But I've determined I need to be making these videos even when I'm not looking my best. I'll make videos where I look my best, but this ain't one of them, because it's a first draft. And so I gathered up my kids, 4th grade, and we went into the room. I had to have them help me carry these 2 huge boxes of materials, and they were mislabeled, and so it took me forever to get. I was supposed to have a lot of materials that weren't in there, and so no, I'm not going to detail it, get lost in that. So I'm thinking I'm thinking off the top of my head what to say, how to put it. Okay, the students were a pretty good group. There were a few chatties. There was a group of girls, two girls in particular, who just were talk, 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 giggle, 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 talk, 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 and they were completely ignoring everything else. They weren't really loud. They weren't really disruptive. They were just disruptive enough that I didn't want to tolerate it. It's the kind of thing I would have tolerated in a class where everyone had to be there, but in this case I told them, look, you don't have to be here. You can, next Saturday, you need to think about whether you really want to come back. And I ended up having to separate the two girls. I had this one kid who was constantly asking kind of silly questions. And they say there's no such thing as a silly question, except he was somehow making them silly questions. He was asking kind of like questions that were just on the borderline of relevancy. So I tried to talk to him. He's also one of the kids who tries to dominate the class. Yeah, it sounds like me sometimes. But I got several other guys asking questions. The assignment was not very good. It was about doing recognizing constellations, and they were having it. We were doing it through a grid system, and the instructions were to have my team. I had 5 teams of students, of 4 and 3, and it said each group was supposed to draw this diagram on a chalkboard that was like 5 feet wide, and if they did it right, and there was like barely room on the one small chalkboard in this room. Was a whiteboard for one of those, much less 5. And then once we got it up, I had this one girl who kept going, are we going to do any science? I said, we're going to. And science. And anyway, she was one of the girls who was talking, now that I think about it. So maybe she will come back. I'm just free associating as I'm thinking. I lose my train of thought as I keep going from one thought to the next. That's why this is a first draft. So most of the kids did not know what a coordinate system was. A, B, or up and down, X, Y. An XY coordinate system. Descartes before the horse. So I suppose I misread how it was supposed to have been done, and I had it with with an origin at the middle and 0, 0 at the middle. But apparently I misread that, and they should have been drawing a coordinate system that was a general XY with 0, 0 in the bottom corner, in the bottom left corner, as the origin, rather than in the middle at 0, 0. In other words, all you're looking at is the first quadrant. So, mathematical terms here as I think about them. So, the idea we had these little glow-in-the-dark stars, like you decorate your ceiling when you're a kid, or you're just goofy like me. You put these stars all over the room, and turn the light off, they glow somewhat. And the problem is they had no sticky material on them. They had no magnets, nothing. How are you going to stick them? Assuming the board was one of the magnetic boards, there's no way of knowing it's a magnetic board. So that was a problem, and I had to. Most of the kids didn't know what coordinate systems were to begin with, so I was showing them how to do coordinates, and then I showed them plus, minus, negative, which is probably more than they were supposed to learn anyway. And we just had a quick fire sale, you might say, a fire lesson where they learned quickly, dirty. I don't know, maybe it'll be familiar enough that they'll remember it next week or the next time we do a coordinate system exercise. And then I had to kind of make it up as I went along. I'd kind of lost track of time, and I suddenly realized you know, are we going to have a recess? And then I started digging through my paperwork, which it really wasn't very well coordinated, what was what and what was where. Um, yeah, in retrospect, it might have been obvious if I had been a little sharper, but, you know, I was tired because I woke up at the last minute. I almost overslept because, actually, no, I didn't oversleep. It was something for some reason I thought, I got up and I thought, I'm going to be late, I'm going to be late, I'm going to be late. But when I got there, I had plenty of time, so maybe the panic I had this morning about I'm going to be late just never was alleviated by the fact that I was nowhere near being late. There's an insight into my psychology for all you who want to start doing your dissertation on GTG. How crazy is he? Not much. So I took him out to recess. I've gone and did my, you know, biological duties. I said duty. Anyway, I took him back into class. I went out and sat at one of the, they have picnic tables out there for lunch, people eating lunch. Some schools don't have that. I don't know why some schools don't allow any sitting anywhere near the playgrounds. This one seemed to work out pretty well. So I sat out, and the students weren't really too chatty with me at that first day. I don't think they quite got to know me very well. Spent 4 hours together, so I don't know. We'll see how they react to me next week. I never really know, because I'll be in a class and I'll spend a day with them, and then I find out that they loved me later, when at the time, you know, I thought, oh, they don't really, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens next week, how they go, hi, Mr. Green, or, oh, Mr. Green. Delight's looking up at me like, what the heck are you talking about? So, Delight's my dog. So anyway, after we came back, I gave him a couple of quick lessons, and I hooked up the computer to the internet, my computer, and I played a couple of videos. I figured if I'm supposed to teach in constellations, I played some stuff about constellations. I started out, somehow the idea, something about Pluto came into one of the conversations earlier, so I said, okay, anyone want to hear about Pluto? And so I started playing a few Pluto-related videos from places like SciShow, SciShow Space, PBS Digital Labs. There was another guy that I don't remember his name of his channel. We did a thing about, we talked about they wanted to know about the planets orbiting TRAPPIST-1. So I played a couple of videos on that for them. And what else did I played them the 7 Minutes of Terror video. That, well, we watched that at the teachers. And I've seen it before many times. At the teachers' orientation, we watched that movie. It's from NASA, called 7 Minutes of Terror, about the entry of the Mars rover robot to the surface of Mars. And they found that very interesting. I played a few other videos, and we talked about Pluto. I told them one of the latest theories about Pluto, the so-called heart, the shape. One theory I've heard is that something hit Pluto very massively on the other side, and it created such a blast that it not only messed up the other side of Pluto in a different way, it kind of had a ripple effect. It blasted out the other side of Pluto. And so what we're looking at is basically the internal guts of Pluto. Which it would make sense, because it would have happened probably fairly recently. I mean, probably, by recently I mean within the last 1 or 2 billion years. You know, as opposed to, you know, 4.5 billion years old. That's what I mean by recently. it's not been enough time for the internals that have been blasted out of Pluto to have discolored enough that it would not be, well, it's still pretty white, and discoloration takes place over time with other impacts, secondary impacts, and chemical reactions between the rocks, between whatever floats in space, radiation. A lot of things will cause chemical, and within the reaction of the rocks. In this case, the rocks being like water ice or methane. I told him, imagine Pluto where mountains are made of ice. Ice is a rock. Water ice is a rock on Pluto. And there are glaciers of nitrogen. But frozen nitrogen is not like frozen water. It's kind of slushy. So as I understand it, a mountain, if you were to take nitrogen and freeze it to the point where it becomes a solid, it's at the temperature of Pluto, it would be more mushy, like the consistency of hard ice cream or hard butter. Not frozen, but just, refrigerated, or it's not yet frozen. Pluto's an interesting place. So we talked about that. We talked a few other things. I kept telling him that today is a day where I was learning too. I mean, I've never done this kind of a lesson before. Specifically, I've taught odd topics. I've been a tutor many times, and I've led the discussion more than once, presentations and various university classes, everything from poetry to English. I've been a tutor for calculus. And I don't think I'm that good at calculus either. I understand what you get out of calculus. The mechanics of it are kind of difficult for me to memorize. So, what more should I say? Thank you for your support, those of you who are watching this. Please contribute through the Patreon if you want to keep me going. My GoFundMe, PayPal, or just buy me coffee next time you see me. Bring me a donut. No, don't bring me a donut. I've eaten too many donuts. That's all.